The school year is about to start. And if you're a parent of a child listening to this podcast, I know you want the school year to be a successful one for you, for them, for everybody involved. You want them to love the school year. So today we wanted to bring on a special guest who's going to give you some great, real practical tips to help that school year be fantastic coming up as it's beginning to start, coming up in August or September. And she's been working for 19 years as a conscious discipline instructor and helping train teachers, helping teach at early childhood education place, specifically to help kids and teachers be successful throughout the school year. So I know you're going to enjoy this conversation. Definitely jump into it with Sara and I as we learn about how to equip our kids, how to get their brains ready for the school year coming up ahead. And before you listen to it, take a moment to leave a comment, to definitely review the podcast. We've had a goal for a while to reach over 100. We're not quite there yet, but I'd love for you to pause it right now. Take a moment. If this podcast has been helpful to you at all, we'd love to hear your comments. It's really encouraging to us. And then just take a moment to enjoy listening to Cristy, and it's going to really help you with your kid today.
Welcome to the Art of Raising Humans.
The Art of Raising Humans is a podcast designed to support, equip, and encourage parents on how to create long-lasting, deeply connected relationships with their kids that's free from fear and shame. Come join us on the journey. Hello, welcome to the Art of Raising Humans. I'm Kyle.
And I'm Sara.
And Sara, today we've got a special guest this week, Yes. And this special guest that we want to introduce to this audience is somebody I've gotten to know for quite some time, So that there was a time where I was a school counselor and I was working with kids in a public school setting. And the discipline at the school was just kind of all over the place. So there's some teachers who really just wanted to love on kids and just be kind. There was other ones who just loved controlling classrooms with an iron grip. There was card systems being used. There was behavior charts being thrown around.
Everyone brought what they had and taught from that experience and that knowledge.
And I never wanted to be a school counselor, so I came into the school counseling thing going, I guess this is what you need to do. I don't know. But then somebody told me about a different approach. And this approach was called conscious discipline. And they introduced me to a lady named Cristy Roberts. And eventually Cristy Roberts introduced me to a lady named Dr. Becky Bailey, who started the approach. But today we get to bring Cristy to you guys. And I wanted to bring Cristy because Cristy was a big part of me making the shift, first as a school counselor and then second as a dad.
Yeah.
And so it's been neat. A lot of times Cristy and I have been able to work in the schools, talking to teachers. I've seen Cristy do her stuff where she's trying to change these dynamics with teachers who are like, I'm not changing. And Cristy's trying to help them shift. Yes. And so I wanted Cristy to be able to speak to some of those dynamics because that's happening in a lot of homes. So without further ado, I want to say welcome, Cristy Roberts.
Well, thank you so much. It's great to be here and good to see you again, Kyle. I've missed our Panera Bread get together and talk. So it's great to see you and Sara.
Yes. And so Cristy, you've been a conscious discipline trainer and instructor for how long?
Yeah, I've been certified for 19 years. So there's only a few of us that have been here this long. So a lot of younger girls coming up, and it's in great hands as we are kind of aging out and there's lots of new instructors coming on. And, with something like discipline and the brain research and everything, it's something that's always changing. It's fluid. The more we think we know, voila, some new science comes out and we know more and more. So it's an interesting time to be doing all of this, really, for the last 20 years. We've known so much more about the brain.
Well, and you originally graduated with a degree in deaf education, really wanting to help kids who had issues with deafness. How did you stumble into becoming a conscious discipline instructor? Well, what was that like?
Well, that's going back quite a ways, but I went into work in a childcare center and when my children were young. And so I have 5 children, and my 2 boys are the bookends. And so I've got 3 girls in the middle that could have raised themselves pretty much. But my 2 boys were very, very challenging and in different ways. And at that time, my oldest son had some challenging behaviors. And in my gut, I always knew that being a teacher, I wanted to discipline him when he got home or to follow up with what the school wanted me to do. But I would ask him, what did you do at school, or why did you do that? And when he would say, I don't know, I really believed him. I could tell in his energy and in his spirit and everything that he really didn't understand why he was always being disciplined in this way. And so being in childcare, I was a childcare director at the YWCA after a while. And I had a friend, Linda Ranson, that said, hey, let's get our childcare centers together and do a book study. I've been reading this great book called Conscious Discipline. So one summer, we did a little, you bring your staff here, and we had dinner, and I took my staff there. We went through the book, and it was just about that time that I went to a national conference and Dr. Bailey was speaking. And, I don't often use I use a lot of analogies, but I felt like I was at a Southern Baptist tent revival. That everything that she was saying was just like, I know that was truth to me. It just made such sense, and it put words to what my intuition was. And I've been in classrooms where there were teachers that wanted just, they always wanted to go to a consequence or to discipline children. And as I was learning more and more about conscious discipline, it just seemed, it rang true to me in raising my children.
Well, it sounds like you wanted to say amen a bunch.
Yeah, I did. I think I did.
And I know I was talking to Sarah before we had you on, Cristy, and I just know we haven't used conscious discipline, that verbiage, a lot on the podcast, even though it's deep in my bones. Even though whenever I'm coaching parents myself, I'm using a lot of the same verbiage, using the work from Dr. Becky Bailey along with Dr. Laura Markham, and I'm kind of synthesizing that with Dr. Siegel and all these other greats in the field, to then also implementing our own experiences that we've had as parents and coaches. But if you were to then describe what conscious discipline is to the listeners, how would you describe what that is? Because I'm sure they've heard things about peaceful parenting and gentle parenting, and I know conscious discipline is in a similar vein as that, but how would you describe it?
What really drew me to it is that I'm the type of, I'm a learner. And so the science piece really pulled me in. The learning about that you have different states of the brain. And when you're in the survival state or the emotional state or the executive state, there's specific skills that you can access when you're in those states. So the lower states, the survival state and the emotional state, they have fewer skills. And you can't reach up into your executive state and pull out time management if you're in your survival state and you are looking for safety in a classroom.
Because you're in that primal mode of just survival,
Yeah. So your survival state and your emotional state are closed systems. So those skills that you have are the only ones you can access at that time. But there are things that we can do as an adult to what we call download our calm, we can lend our executive states to children. And there's certain ways to get them from their brainstem up to their emotional state and into the beginning of their executive state. One of the things that still I'm always having to remind, I'm a teacher coach now. I went back into the classroom after COVID and to help teachers, and is that the executive state of the brain isn't developed until 24 and maybe up until 30 with some people. So when we're dealing and we're getting frustrated with a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old, that part of their brain is barely getting little sparks. They truly don't have access to their executive skills. So we tend to want to punish them for that.
Yeah.
And that once you really know how about brain development, that doesn't make much sense to do that.
Yeah. What would you say to people who, when in our culture right now, Cristy, there's a lot of, at times it seems like some negative pushback about approaches like conscious discipline or peaceful parenting or what some people call gentle parenting, this focus that I would say they all come together because there is a big focus, like you said, on the brain, but also about feelings and feelings having a priority, right? Because, what Dr. Becky Bailey would teach or others would teach is that is the first thing. It is the feeling that then informs the other parts of the brain, that more primal state you talked about. But some people see that as more permissive, that they see it as more letting the kid get away with stuff. So what would your response be to that, to people being afraid of that's what they're going to do? They're going to raise kids who are just constantly being controlled by their feelings, and they're constantly just being impulsive and doing whatever they want, and there's no restrictions or boundaries to it.
Well, I think with our generation and the generations before us, our feelings have run rampant. And so the fear comes from not being able to manage your emotions. And so we don't want to constantly, we think we're giving the children, we're letting them off the hook. Whereas if they know and they can label their emotions that they're feeling, it actually hooks them into a solution of how to respond to a situation instead of react. We're worried that because of our generation, nobody told us, oh, you're feeling frustrated, or that these feelings and where they show up in your body, that's almost like a second language to us. It's very confusing. And our experiences with people when they get emotional is that they're reacting to things and that solutions never come. Whereas learning how to manage your emotions and understanding what you truly are feeling, that hooks you into the solution and the problem solving. So it's a really intricate piece, but I think that people are fearful because of we didn't tap into those feelings and really understand the messages that they bring. We just either ignored them or just refuse to feel them because we use things like, I always ask teachers if you're going through a lot in your life and you're just having a really hard, season in your life, where do you leave that when you come to work? And 250 people will go, at the door. And I'm like, that's a lie, because you bring your whole self to work and you can deny and deny those emotions, but they're kind of like bubbles that'll come up through, and they're going to come out. And where they come out is they come out on those color charts. So when I go into a classroom and do an observation and I see the red, yellow, green charts, that tells me how the teacher or the adult in the classroom is really feeling, rather than how the kids are doing in the classroom that day.
So Cristy, when I'm hearing you talk about dealing with these teachers and trying to help them change what they're doing in the classroom, right? And so you're really helping instruct them to see behavior differently. I was curious, I didn't have this down as one of my questions to ask you, but what would you say to parents that are trying to make a change with their parenting and they're sending their kids to schools that are still using these methods? Their kids are still getting timeouts on the bench at recess. They're still getting these color charts every day. They're getting like, yay, my kid's on a green, or like, oh, your kid's on a yellow, red. Or the suggestion is, let's put another behavior chart in process, right? So what advice would you have for that parent in regards to, two things? One, is there a way they could talk to that teacher? Is there anything you would suggest on how to change that? Or how should they discuss that with their kid when they come home about how to understand what's happening there with that teacher?
Yeah. I kind of have a very personal and perfect explanation or kind of story to talk about this. My youngest son, who's 24 now, so that means he got his whole brain this year. We always celebrate when the kids turn 24 with a brain cake and all of that they have full access to their prefrontal cortex. And I expect them to use it. So,
you like, the expectations have gone up.
I've done my job. And so I've celebrated that 5 times. But with Ethan had some different developmental, I just call it quirkiness. He's probably on the Asperger's scale. And because I'm his mom, and he has older brothers and sisters that have been raised with a significant amount of conscious discipline. He had some skills that teachers didn't recognize him being, having some difficulties in school. And so there were times when, the awards assemblies every month, and kids would get awards, and it would get to be towards the end of the year. And Ethan would, I'd be putting him down for bed, and he would say, what does it take to get one of those awards? I mean, he really didn't understand why he just felt like he was getting picked on, or and really there was a lot of bullying, and I use that term in the truest sense, from teachers because they didn't understand a difference, neurotypical differences in him. And so it was really hard for me to be doing what I do. And I would go into teacher conferences and kind of try to explain this. And I would just get eye rolls, or, how I don't understand what it's like in the classroom and all of that. But years went by, and I was at a training with Dr. Bailey. And there was this one part in her training, and it just hit me that, Ethan you can't save your kids from their own life. Let me just say that there's experiences that they're going to go through. And the best thing that you can do as a parent is, put lots of tools in their toolbox so that in different situations, they can take out different tools. And even though I'm not going to be with him all the time, he's got a lot of tools in his tool belt that he doesn't have to go through life with a hammer, just a hammer. Yeah. And but I was thinking just how weird that, was that I do this for a living, and yet he's had such a difficult time in school. So I came home and I was talking to him about it, and I said, Ethan, here's the deal. When you get a little bit older, you can look back, and in looking back at all the stuff that you've been through in school, your principal is now over all of the elementary schools of the school district, and your teacher is now a principal over a school. And that specific school district was letting me come in and do trainings all over the school district. And I said, I don't know if this is right, but I feel like you kind of took one for the team. that think of all the children now and all the teachers now that are getting a chance to hear the parts of conscious discipline that have helped you so much. Yeah. And that they didn't understand before, that now it can multiply. So I said, I think that you're going to have some things and a story and a testimony to tell people about your school and how you were treated. And so he came up with the idea of taking the conflict resolution mat into the elementary schools. Yeah. So he did that, and he went to the city council and got some money to purchase the conflict resolution mats. and took it in and trained each of the student councils so that they took it into the schools.
That's so cool.
That's really
yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So the all of that to say, again, that you know, your kids are going to have experiences, but the moments that you have with children to build their, and even just to relax their brain from stress, those are critical moments. And a lot of pushback that I get from the schools is, why should we be doing this when the parents aren't doing it at home? And, you know, I say we get children that are marinating in cortisol and adrenaline. They're just tight. And if we don't relax that and change that chemical balance in their brain, that for the 8 hours that we have them, that their brains literally, toxic stress, you can look it up anywhere now, it's, you know, and see MRIs where that literally eats holes in the prefrontal cortex where your brilliance is. So it's imperative that people that can be calm and can lend their executive skills to children do that whenever they're present with them. I do little things in my own life that people think I'm crazy, but instead of New Year's resolutions, like I'll do something that has to do with connecting or noticing my own blind spots. So one year it was, I started noticing that many kids, the only time that they get looked at eye to eye is when they're in trouble. And so whenever I made eye contact with a child for a year, it was my New Year's resolution, I was going to smile at them. And my kids would we'd be in restaurants and I'd be trying to make eye contact with children. They're like, leave that baby alone, Mom.
That's great.
But it was so interesting to, you know, there's lots of kids that won't make eye contact because when they do, they kind of get these lectures or they get a stern look, or you better behave. And so there's just a dynamic that, you know, the brain is pattern seeking. And so when we don't counterbalance that negative pattern that the child has been put in, possibly, you know, that it sets up, you know, after the age of 3 and especially after the age of 8, it's really hard to change that belief system that the child believes that they are the bad child, or they are the difficult sister, or they, you know, they become, our external language that we say out loud becomes the child's internal dialogue.
Yeah.
So what we say about them becomes their internal thoughts about themselves. So we have to be very careful about what we say over them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So how I love the piece where you're saying, okay, if they're in this environment at school and I can't do much about that. I mean, my kid goes to school and I've talked to the school. How, when you said calming their nervous system or helping to at least balance some of that, what's something tangible? If my kid comes home, what could I do?
Yeah. The first thing is for the adult in the situation to remain calm. Yeah. It's very helpful for us to have done some internal searching and learning about what are our triggers, what things, you know, I'm not going to blame other people for my reactions. I want to be responsible, and I want to teach my children to be responsible. So the difference in responding to things and reacting to things. So we have to do our own work on that so that we're not constantly going around reacting. Somebody cuts us off in traffic and we react with some inventive sign language or honking our horn or, you know, yelling. And we're teaching the kids in the back seat that when the world doesn't go your way, throw a fit.
Yeah.
And we don't realize that, but they are sponges and that's their reality. So everything that they're taking in everything as just set reality, a base of reality. So rather than acting, you know, a nut when the world isn't going my way, I want to model how to respond to situations and to wish well. If somebody cuts me off in traffic, I might say something, I take a deep breath and go, whew, that was scary, or I was worried, but I hope that, they probably have some place to be that they have to be really quickly. I hope they get there safely. Yeah. So this becomes a normal response in their brain too. Yeah. This is how you respond when the world doesn't go your way, rather than kicking and screaming. So if you've done a lot of that when they were little, downloading that calm even when they're a baby, when a baby starts to cry, we usually pick them up and we you're fine, you're fine, you're fine. And then we start this bouncing and the baby, maybe they go to sleep. But if they fall asleep, they are, again, marinating in cortisol and adrenaline.
Yes. Yeah.
And a lot of times we'll say, look over here. Here's a toy. And we try to distract them, or we give them a bottle. We do certain things and they fall asleep. But then they wake up with that energy and those chemicals that are still in their body. So they wake up cranky and on the wrong side of the bed, and all of those terms that we've given, the terrible two, all of that. Yeah. So instead, from the very beginning, if we learn to pick up a baby, or let's say, I train people to pick up babies, or when the parents drop them off, and just hold them and breathe. No language. Because the brainstem doesn't need language. It needs a felt sense of safety. So I'm just going to hold the baby. I'm calming myself, and I'm taking some deep breaths through my nose and blowing it out. And then slowly, as I calm myself, naturally as humans, we're going to start this sway. Yeah. And that's 80 beats per minute if you watch somebody, and that's the beat of the heart. So we'll, as humans, go into this sway. And now, rather than you're fine, you're fine, you're fine, that's for labor. We're trying to calm.
That's right.
So we want to calm. And now I'm just going to tell the baby the truth, and that keeps me calm. When I'm saying you're fine, and the baby's screaming, I'm lying to the baby. And subconsciously, I know that, because all is not well. And so I'm just going to say, that's hard when mommy leaves. It's hard. She'll be back. Breathe with me. I'm going to keep you safe. And so then I turn the baby around. Maybe I sit down, pull toys in, but their back is to my chest. And I'm going to continue downloading that calm. And then they start waddling with the toys, and they get up and they walk out to play with, in the classroom or in the environment. And so what's happened is, rather than me trying to distract them from their emotions, I'm teaching them how to manage them by breathing and being calm and knowing the truth. It is hard when mommy leaves, but you're safe. I'm going to keep you safe. So that felt sense of safety turns off the brainstem, and they come up into their emotional state. I'm going to name and describe what they're feeling. It's sad, or look at your face. Your face is looking like this, depending on the age of the child. But the main thing is that I'm staying calm, and the child senses that safety. So then they go off and play, rather than me putting them down to sleep. And now we have this child that, if this continues, when they grow up, if it's not done, let's go back to the baby that you're fine, you're fine, you're fine. Look here, you want a bottle, you want a toy, a rattle. They grow up and they get this sense of angst that they felt. Now this is all subconscious when we grow up, because they're learning this behavior before language. So they don't have words to put with this sense of angst. They grow up and they start to feel this sense of, I don't feel good, or maybe going through a divorce or some type of, having a disconnection. Yeah. And they say, I feel like going shopping.
Yes. Yeah.
Or, hey, happy hour. Anybody want to go to happy hour and get a margarita? Yeah. It's like, those are subconscious things that we put into children. Remember, the brain is pattern seeking. So when I feel this way, I need to distract myself and lie to myself. Yeah. And we don't do those things on purpose. It's just that's how we were raised. That's what we're giving to our children. But we can do it in a better way. And I go away from that situation as the adult feeling better, and the child feels better. So it's a win-win both ways. Yeah. So as that child grows up, you up your skills a little bit. You get a little bit deeper in the language. And you also learn that certain things that we say hit the brain in different ways.
Yeah.
So instead of saying, how does that make you feel? Because that gives whatever, like if a child comes home from school and says, my teacher was mean to me today, and I say, how does that make you feel? Well, that gives the teacher or that situation the power.
Totally.
But instead I say, how did you feel when that happened?
Yeah.
Because I'm not denying that it happened. I'm not denying that you had some feelings, but how did you feel gives the responsibility back to the child. So we're building a true sense of, oh, this is the emotion I'm feeling and how to manage it. Yeah. And a sense of responsibility for nobody can make me do anything. I am in charge of myself, and I can learn how to respond instead of react to situations. So even though school can go wonky when they get home, if we talk through that in a way that hits their brain and reestablishes those connections in their brain, all can be well.
Well, and even what I heard you say, Cristy, was, man, that's all set up years prior. That's set up for years prior. So even if a parent, they look back and say, man, those early years, maybe I did do a lot of the shh, you're fine, right? And they're wanting to change it now. What I'm hearing you say is, a parent can change that now just by how they're reacting to the daily stressors. Anytime, like you said, someone cuts you off in traffic. I know for me, when it hit me, Cristy, was being in like the Chick-fil-A line and me getting mad at how long it was taking and realizing that I was just throwing a tantrum here. And I was teaching my kids, anytime something didn't go my way, anytime somebody wasn't doing what I think they should be doing, or treating me the way I think they should be treating me, then I'm going to get really mad about it, And once that hit me, once I saw the kids were learning that from me, then I thought, I want to handle this differently. I really want to take a moment here to just calm myself down. We can wait. I actually started doing something kind of silly at times where I'd pick the longest line at Target or the longest line at Walmart, and let's just wait in line and let's just find a way to enjoy it, because I didn't come to this store to do it super fast. I came to the store to be with you guys. I want to be with you. And who knows what could happen in this line? Maybe we can meet a neat person while we're waiting, or maybe we'll have a great conversation, but there's no need to constantly be rushing it and speeding it up. And so I'm hearing you say, for parents who are listening, if they're having those problems at school, that a lot of what you're doing this summer, as they're with their kids over the summertime, is they can be modeling how to handle these moments better, and then get into a habit of not asking them how did that make them feel that day, but how did they feel about it? How did you feel about your day? And when the teacher did that, how did you feel about that? And then you kind of like delving it into that with them, so then you can partner with them about how to handle those situations in the future.
Right. And be gentle on yourself too. It's, gentle parenting is being gentle on yourself too, because in the week-long trainings that I know you've gone to, Kyle, by Wednesday, we call it Weeping Wednesday, because by Wednesday, you're just sure that you've messed up your own children. But the thing of it is that we've done the best with the tools that we had. But again, Maya Angelou says, when you know better, you do better. I mean, she said it way more eloquently, but we know so much more now than our parents knew. And so that doesn't say that our parents did it wrong. They did what they knew to do. But it really is interesting when you delve more into conscious discipline and the states of the brain and the skills that you have in those states, when it's happening in front of you and you see it. The first time you calm a baby on your chest and you think, okay, I'm just going to slowly breathe and tell them that they're safe, and it works. You're like, oh my gosh, that, so you get a little hit of the good stuff. We call it joy juice. And that's another piece that I kind of want to talk about with parents is that this whole idea we were talking about of emotions is that, an emotion is energy in motion. If you take emotion and you pull it apart, the E is the energy that puts your body into motion. So with every emotion that we have, a different dump of chemicals goes into our body that makes our body react in a certain way. So if I am afraid or frustrated or angry, I'm going to have a rush of cortisol and adrenaline into my body. And that my body responds to it by my arms and my legs are going to get stiff, my muscles. And that's because if I go into fight or flight, I need those large muscles. My eyes dilate. So in case I need to notice a leaf rustling, there's a tiger over there, fight or flight. So my body starts to respond to those chemicals. And it's exactly the same with when you and Sarah were first in love and, you were, you hang up. No, you hang up. No, you hang up. That type of, Disney calls it being Twitter-pated. Those chemicals were oxytocin and the bonding chemical. And so with each feeling, there's a different cocktail that's dumped into the body. And so when we learn, I feel angry, I can start to manage those chemicals. That's what you were doing when you were getting frustrated in line. You weren't managing them. You were you were shooting all over people is what you were doing, Kyle. They should be doing this. So you're resisting the moment, which takes you out of the moment. Now you miss it. But when you're present in the moment, you're with your children. Yeah. And, adults are constantly in the past and in the future. We've got to get, we regret this and we need to get them ready for this. But children only live in the present. So right there, you can see this disconnect that we can have with our kids when we're missing those moments of being present with them. Life happens in the present. And we should ourselves out of being with our children. So getting in the wrong line or getting in the slow line also teaches us the skill of waiting. That's something we don't teach kids. We teach them to stop and go, but we don't teach them to wait. And that there's a feeling of kind of anxiousness around waiting. So how do we manage the times when we need to wait? Yep.
Yeah. Well, and I'm really loving how you put that with the emotion being energy in motion. That's such a great way to think about it, is what energy is this bringing up in me and how am I expressing that through the motion?
Right.
So in kind of wrapping up our conversation, I wanted to ask you this. If you were, this is going to drop sometime in the summer, this podcast will. And so if parents are listening to this, they're going to be thinking, well, how can I best prepare my kid's brain for the upcoming school year? And so what would be like, some easy things that you'd say they could be doing this summer to help their kid be more prepared to have a great school year?
Yeah. I think, with Conscious Discipline, the book, it has 7 chapters and there's 7 skills and powers. And so you can get on the Conscious Discipline website and there's a parent tab that has all kinds of free things that you can be doing at home. So I want to say, consciousdiscipline.com for that, so that you can go in and see some videos of parents talking about these things. And it's heavy on the teacher and the school side, but there's also curriculum for parents. So,
but even for that, I'd say they could also find the Schubert books, right? I find those are great books for kids that are elementary age that would be fantastic to read with your kids prior to school come out, because then the parent could see kind of the different skills there and also what a classroom could look like that is being run this way. Right.
And I'd say they're great for the kids, but they're really great for parents too, because sometimes we are on the same journey we were parented a different way or we're wired a different way. So we're trying to rewire ourselves while we're still trying to teach our children. And I loved the Schubert books personally, because while I was, reading to my children and they're absorbing all that information, I was like, oh, I like how they said that. I like how they worded that. And it helped reinforce and build things in me too.
Yeah. Along with each of, there's a Schubert book that goes along with each of the chapters of the curriculum book. So those are great. Yeah. Because as you're reading the book, you're saying the words. You're modeling the language and learning the language yourself. So there's some what we call structures that we put into a classroom or into our home. There's also on the website Schubert's School and Schubert's Home. So you can go in and you can kind of take a virtual tour around a child's bedroom, Schubert's bedroom, or Sophie, his little sister, her little nursery. And you can see where there's I love you rituals and how to connect in different ways with your children.
And for every listener, the I love you rituals book is amazing. It's so fun to be doing those. I'm almost thinking as you say that, I'm like, that's such a great way to get started with school, is do a bunch of I love you rituals. Right?
Well, and that's where I was going, is that to start practicing routines and rituals. Routines, remember, it's every human brain is the same in that the brain is pattern seeking. So when we put the brain into a pattern, the brain stem turns off because it feels a sense of safety. And, anxiety is just crazy rampant in our country right now with children. Yeah. And I think that not having clear routines, we're overbooking our kids, and, you can still be doing a lot of fun things, but to have visual routines where kids can know who's picking them up tomorrow. Are we going to camp? Are we going to day camp? Are we going to Taekwondo? Or are we doing ballet? Am I going to need a swimsuit at the Y camp? All of those things, if we can put a visual schedule together with pictures, that helps. And so we want to have clear routines. And if we can put those in pictures, children can remember pictures so much better than the words. Yeah. So lots of, we grow up and we have our checklists that, yes, I did that. Yes, I did that. That's kind of a pre-checklist for children. The other thing is doing some rituals. So think about rituals, again, help us feel connected and loved and seen. So if we have visuals, schedules, and we stick with those the best that we can, that turns off the brain stem. And so now it comes up to a little bit of a higher state of the brain, to the emotional state. So when we do things that are rituals, every time we say goodbye, we do a fist bump. Every time, or a pinky, or when I wake them up in the morning, I do the same thing, a little I love you ritual, that the child feels seen and connected. Yeah. And so a lot of those type of things, I remember with my kids on the last day of school and the first day of school, we would go get ice cream. And, I had Ethan late in life, later than them. I sent one to college and one to kindergarten the same year. I do not suggest that. I don't suggest that. But, the kids were older, and they had called me and said, are we going to go get ice cream today? And I'm thinking, well, that's weird. Why are we going to go get ice cream? And they go, well, didn't Ethan have his first day of school today? And I was like, yes, we are, because that became this is who we are. This is our foundation. This is how we are connected. So family rituals are very important to help children feel safe and connected. So going into this, if you're doing that during the summer, then when we're going into the school year, we change our visual schedules to what's our evening routine. Yeah. First you do this, and then you do that, and lots of different examples of how to do the visual schedules. But working on routines for the patterns, setting the patterns, and rituals for connection. And they're fun. That's
Totally.
the fun stuff.
Well, it makes it fun for the parent too. And I think Sarah and I, what we love to do all that. But like you were saying, even the goodbyes, how they say goodbye for school when they're going, when they come back, how do we reconnect? And then also even the ritual of, what do we do right when we get home to kind of unload this backpack of emotions, right? What's that going to look like? And is it just jumping on video games? Is it just going to the next event? Or is there some way to kind of relax for a moment and be with each other and unload that backpack full of emotions? So that's such great advice going into this year that I think every parent could implement. And those resources, if people want to find them, go to consciousdiscipline.com and they can find all of those resources there. And I know, Cristy, you'll probably be doing a lot of trainings in the Tulsa area, but also throughout the United States with Conscious Discipline and speaking at places. So if you ever have a chance to go to a Conscious Discipline conference, it isn't just for teachers. I went to it as a school counselor, but there was a lot of parents there too at these conferences. And it was life-changing for me and Sarah as parents to really get these tools that I think Becky Bailey does such a great job implementing, because she is a PhD in education and likes to give these kind of more practical ways of actually changing a classroom or changing a home. And also the parent book that we recommend a lot is Easy to Love, Difficult to Discipline by Dr. Becky Bailey. And that's one that's on my shelf. I'm constantly telling parents to buy it and get that. And we love to coach parents through those conscious discipline skills. So I think this will be fantastic for parents going into the school year.
Yeah, it's she just does a great job of making it something. If you're new or if you're struggling, it's just tools that are really easy to grab and understand and put into practice when you're maybe not sure where to start. So yeah, I love her material.
Well, even like how you mentioned, Cristy, the conflict resolution mat or the time machine. If you're a parent listening to that and you're having sibling conflict in your home, go check out that mat. Implement that at home, right? You'll see great tools for how to create a safe place in your home, on how to help your kids regulate their emotions when they come home after a rough day or even a great day, how to do that. So all of those things, there'll be access for that. So I want to say thank you, Cristy, for coming on
thank you
today. And thank you for the work you're doing in these schools, in these early childhood places where you're helping teachers and parents learn better how to wire these little babies' brains. So we have a better society, a place where we have adults who don't stuff it or don't try to mask it, but actually can feel it and then know how to communicate it and do something that's positive about it.
Yeah. And there's, so much more. It goes very, very deeply. But, to end, I want parents to notice when that feeling comes up of I'm letting them off the hook, that they need to have some type of consequence or we need to discipline. Conscious discipline means to bring to consciousness what's going on. And then discipline means to teach how to do it, to give a new tool. And so, we do what we call pivot. If you feel like you're being too permissive, check in with yourself. We don't want to save our children either, but check in with yourself and go, am I hooking them into the solution rather than punishing them for not having a skill? Yeah. Am I teaching that skill, which will hook them into, we don't want all the kids on the bench. We want them in the game. So how can I keep my kids in the game?
So good.
Love that.
Yeah. Thank you again for your time, Cristy. And I appreciate all listeners for taking a moment to listen to this. Definitely take the time to check out those resources. It will really prepare you for this upcoming year.
Have a great day.
You too. Wish you well.
The Art of Raising Humans podcast should not be considered or used as counseling, but for educational purposes only.